One to Grow On is going to be a life-changing experience for many of us. And when I say that, I can see the question mark above your head. So the best way for me to explain what I mean by that, I think, is just to tell my story. Darla and I got married in 1982. We moved to Dallas in 83, built our first house in 84, and had our first child in 1985. The plan was for Darla to go back to work. But after 6 months of that, it just wasn't working. And even though we had qualified for that mortgage on 2 incomes, we put together a very aggressive budget and counted our pennies and decided that we could live on 1 income so she could stay home with Taylor. Right after that, the leaders at Farmers Branch came to that small congregation with a challenge to build a new building at the corner of Valley View and Webb Chapel. And we were excited. We were pumped up about it. We really bought into the vision. And so Darla and I started praying. Probably for the first time ever, we prayed daily together. I still remember that prayer tent on our kitchen table in that tiny breakfast nook. And every day we would search the Lord in prayer. And we really asked the question, Lord, what do you want to do through us? Well, it was through that process that I became convicted about tithing. Now, Darla had always been a tither. That wasn't an issue for her. But for me, I just didn't get it, and it really kind of scared me. But I went up in the attic, I took out all my tax returns from the very beginning, and I totaled up what my tithe would have been on all that income. The number was kind of staggering to me. It was more than I could possibly do. But I told Darla about it. She had been praying independently, and her number that was coming to her was pretty close to mine, so we made that commitment. Now, looking back at it now, years ago, that number wasn't that much money, really. But at that time, it represented 60% of our annual income. And it was impossible to us. But you know what? God is good. God is gracious. God is faithful. And during the course of that 3-year time frame, I was offered a job that doubled my income. And making that commitment was one of the easiest things we've ever done. Now that's a good story. It's fun to tell. I could go on TV with that story. The televangelists would love that. But the fact of the matter is we've been through 3 campaigns, and I need to tell you the rest of the story. The second campaign, we prayed, we came up with a number. It wasn't as aggressive as the first time around, but God was gracious and we were able to meet it, and we did it joyfully. But the third time, by the time we got to that one, I was an old pro. I knew how this worked. So I sat down and put together a budget and figured out what my income was going to be the next 3 years and what I could afford to do. And so in my own human mind, I came up with a number that I thought was appropriate. I didn't ever pray about it. I never asked God what He wanted to do through me. It was all about, what can I do for you, God? And as a result, that was one of the most difficult things to do. Now, God is good. He was gracious to us. He was faithful to us. And we were able to eventually fulfill that pledge. But I can't say I did it with a joyful heart. So standing here today and looking back on that process, the difference had to do with the amount of prayer that I put into the commitment. And I would just, anybody who's considering One to Grow On, I would just implore them to really take time to pray about it. Search the Lord and seek Him and get His blessing for what He wants to do through you. And if you do that, then I can make the statement that One to Grow On will have a life-changing effect on you.